Hey guys, welcome back, it's Ripe again. In today's video, my dumb boss called me useless and ended up firing me for no reason. Shortly after I was let go, the entire place shut down. Here is what happened, let's dive right into the video. So about 6 years ago, I was working as the head waiter at a disaster of a restaurant. Now, the food and everything was fine, it was the owner that was the problem. See, he intentionally staffed the front of house with teenagers. We worked off tips, so I don't know how I saved him money, but he claimed it was to make things cheaper. I personally think it was people in their first job that didn't know the right and wrong ways they were meant to be treated. Giving him an excuse to be a bad boss and not have them comparing it to anything. I, at age 32, was the oldest person there by far, and at the time of this story, every single waiter and waitress on staff was under 21. My boss was also lazy and basically left me in charge of doing things that might not always fall under the role of head waiter at other places. With all I did there are two important things I want to make note of. The first is that this was an Italian restaurant that boasted the large variety of wine available. In my state, if you are under 21, you cannot serve alcohol unsupervised. I was the only person on the floor able to legally bring the wine from the bar to the tables alone. The second thing I wanted to mention was that I made the schedules and had to work around everybody's schedule. High schoolers have stricter legal hours they can work, and college kids need to work around their classes. The owner is not in the front of house very often and sometimes does not even show up at all. When he does, he makes note of all the time I'm spending doing paperwork or helping staff, especially when they are new. He decided to walk in one day while I was working out the schedule and start an absolute fit with me. Owner, every single time I come in here, I see you sitting on your lazy butt. Or running food for somebody else. What the hell am I paying you for if you're not doing anything useful? When was the last time you ran a table yourself, huh? This argument was the final straw for me, as I told myself the next time he started to talk crap, I was leaving one way or another. Might as well go out with a bang. Me, when was the last time you took an order or helped train staff? Owner, you are nothing but a useless pile of garbage, taking money out of my pocket and then insulting me. I can do your job in about 5 minutes and save all that money. Yeah, all that money, seriously, I was barely making above minimum wage, safe to say I was fired and did not mind it one bit. He was so smug thinking that he could do my job when he didn't know the first thing about his own staff. It took 3 days before I got a phone call from one of the other waiters telling me about the disaster that happened. It was the first day of a schedule that my boss had to make and he messed it up beyond just bad. I knew he didn't look at any of the notes to see who could work when. He was putting high school kids for lunch, college kids during their classes. He even put 2 people on the schedule that he personally fired months before. He did not even know who was working for him at the restaurant. It was so bad that they had to close for lunch that day since there was no waitstaff. I was dying of laughter and begging him to keep giving me updates because I wanted to hear the gossip of this ship sinking with the captain going down too. There was nothing major to report until a little less than a week after that. There was still staffing issues, but now the problem was coming with the fact that nobody over 21 was working the front of house. Only the owner when he bothered to show up. He was leaving them just on their own with no boss half the time. They kept telling him when they got orders for wine that he had to bring it to the tables. He got tired of this and just started demanding that they do it anyway. I don't blame them for listening because they were mostly kids and he was threatening their jobs for disobeying him. Some customer heard him doing this though and reported them for having underage servers dealing with the alcohol. Somebody came to check things out and the liquor license was yanked. For those that don't know, the margin of profit is a lot higher on drinks than food, so losing the ability to sell wine was a pretty big hit to profits for the owner. Plus confusion from people wanting wine with their Italian food and being told that they cannot get any. I think at this point he was starting to realize all those things I was doing were not so useless after all. He was too smug and full of himself to try and call me and beg to come back. Or to even hire somebody else and get things going in a good direction again. When I was working, I didn't know much of what went on in the kitchen, but I guess that once their liquor license got pulled, the state went and did a random health inspection check on them. I don't know what the hell they found, but I just know that they were told to close on the spot and everybody had to leave. The employees were all sent home and not told anything by the owner and were all just in limbo. That was the last update I got, but when I was driving in that area about 3 weeks after that, I passed by the restaurant, or should I say the place where the restaurant used to stand. It was boarded up and had a for rent sign in the window. Within a few weeks of me leaving, the entire place fell apart and shut down. I called that employee and asked if he knew why the place was closed down and if the owner talked to him or anybody. What he told me, I think, was the best example of how little this guy cared about anybody that worked for him. He contacted nobody that the place was not gonna reopen and they needed to get other jobs. He did not take phone calls from them and refused to give them letters of recommendation for a new job. Since I remember most of these people only had this as their work experience and the owner would not verify it now. Due to all of them essentially getting fired, they filed for unemployment, which was what the owner was most likely trying to avoid. Some got it while others didn't, because they'd been getting paid off the books. Another benefit to him hiring young people that don't know any better. Also, there was nobody at his address, the phone was disconnected, etc. I don't know if he fled the country or something due to shame, or if he was into some stuff that nobody knew about. It makes me think more after the whole thing about if he only hired young naive people for a reason that was not related to money at all. Since I was fired weeks before, I did manage to get unemployment without any kind of issue. Since I got a salary and not tipped out like others, it was the weirdest ending to a job I ever had, and the fact I was called useless when it turned out I was keeping the entire thing afloat just makes it that much funnier in my mind. And yeah, Ripe Stars, I really hope that this guy never runs a restaurant again. Anyway, let's continue to the petty revenge story of today. So 3 years ago I moved from the East Coast to California. I was fortunate to be moving from a city that was very expensive, super touristy and popular with boomer retirees, so I was able to sell my home for way more than I paid for it, otherwise a move to Cali, no way. This place is expensive, even the inland empire where I was buying a home. My spouse, now ex, and I were working with a fabulous realtor and found several great homes in our price range. Unfortunately, at the beginning of 2021, the city we were looking in was hot. Every time we made an offer, we were outbid. It was frustrating, and however, there was one house that was sitting on the market for a while that my spouse just loved. It had some issues, but it was about $300,000 under our maximum budget, so we could deal with them. I was not in love with it, but she was pushing hard for it, so we put in an offer for the house and some of the contents, also for sale, about $10,000 over asking price. So then, weeks go by, the realtor representing the seller, Mr. Delay, is asking for proof that we can afford the home. Okay, provided. He wants to know what my job is. Executive? Oh, really? Oh, and on, keeps suggesting that they might get a better offer. Continually suggests that we cannot afford a home this nice, and finally, I am done. A different house that I really wanted falls out of escrow. It's listed for about $110,000 more than the house we are trying to buy from Mr. Delay. I offer $55,000 over asking price contingent on appraisal, and get that house under contract, and my realtor tells Mr. Delay to pound sand. Mr. Delay crapped his pants, blew up my realtor's phone. No, we will take your offer, please reconsider. But nope, my realtor was busting up laughing. She said he was a sexist douche and she loved seeing him squirm. That house ended up selling for $10,000 under asking. I wonder how he explained that to his woman client. If you've enjoyed the stories until here, then please don't forget to like the video and maybe even leave a comment, since that would help me beat the algorithm. Thank you so much, and the next one is titled Messed with the Wrong Guy. So some background info on myself. I'm a large white man from Nebraska, standing at 6'3", who enjoys lifting weights and coaching my son's football team. I also spent 20 years in the military and did 3 years as a contractor for the army after retiring. During my years in the army, I spent 12 of which in Korea and 3 additionally as a contractor. I also met my wife in Korea and learned Korean during this time as well. I've been told that my Korean is quite good. So I've been a cop for a Texas police department for about 15 years now, and now that you got some background, let's jump into my story. I was assigned a rookie officer to help give him some on-the-job training. There's not much crime in my neck of the woods, we live in a good community, and it was middle of the day when we clock a BMW doing 67 in a 50. We take off after the car and pull him over. By all accounts, this is looking like a pretty box standard everyday traffic stop. We run the plates before proceeding and everything comes out clean. I suspect this might be a good stop for my rookie to take the lead on, dip his toes in the water, shall we say. I tell the rookie that he's to take the lead, I'll stay back, and he is to call me if he feels that he needs assistance. He says alright, I stay back, and a couple minutes pass and I can tell my rookie is a bit disgruntled. You might say confused. After another minute he comes back to me. I don't understand the driver. My first reaction is, this driver is drunk. Is the driver drunk? My rookie goes, no, he doesn't appear to be drunk. I don't understand whatever language he's speaking. At first I suspected Spanish, but in hindsight, had it been Spanish, I'm sure my rookie cop would have been able to tell if the driver was speaking Spanish. So I take over, walk up and ask for the regular documents. To my surprise though, the driver says in Korean, I'm sorry, I don't understand English, in Korean. I smile and say in Korean, oh, you speak Korean? Me too. To which the driver turns abruptly and is staring at me with this look of horror on his face and he goes, you don't look Korean, how did you learn Korean? I smiled and said, I met my wife in Korea when I was stationed there during my time in Korea and she taught me Korean. He's stumbling over himself. You know damn well he had no idea that this tall white officer could speak Korean. I smile and go, we pulled you over for speeding. I'm gonna need you to give me your license, registration and insurance. He provides me with the documents and I go back to the car to do my thing. His driving record is pretty clean, a couple minor infractions over the years but nothing to write home about. However, I'm noticing a couple things. He has stapled his insurance cards from USA together from expired to current over the course of 3 years. Which means he is somehow affiliated with the military at some point and he has a standard Texas driver's license, which I suspect means that he can speak English. Nevertheless, let's write this man a ticket and move on with our day. So I write him a ticket, come back, explain all the details in Korean. This is a pretty easy traffic stop and before I let him go I ask, how did you learn Korean? And in English, which is the first time he's spoken to me in English, he says, I was also in the army as a linguistic. I say, that makes sense. Hey, before you go, I'm gonna put in the system attached to your driver's license that you do speak English, so next time you're pulled over, don't pretend like you don't speak English. He looks at me with a defeated look and goes, sorry officer, thank you officer, and off he goes. And yeah, right, stars, I gotta say, I've seen this a couple of times also play out here in Thailand, where people flat out even pretend to not speak English, aside from of course also not speaking Thai, but most of the time it doesn't really help them. It just makes the situation even longer. Thankfully for me, I never really have any issues since I don't really break the law and I can speak Thai, but then again, to be honest, being able to speak the native language here is definitely a bonus and most of the time it really helps you in situations like that where the police stops you or whatever. Either way, the next one is an Am I the A-hole story. So my wife, 25 female of 5 years, has a sister, 20 female. She is somewhat disabled and while this may sound contradictory, she has a condition which makes working difficult but not entirely impossible unless she is under stress. Neurological condition, loses muscle control, makes her hit and throw stuff, fall over, etc. And well, I have no problem with her sister, she is sweet and nice to have around, and my wife loves her more than anything. She basically raised her and stepped in when her parents would not or could not. This has led to a relationship closer to mom and daughter, and my wife would constantly be paying for stuff for her sister, and this made sense to me when she was a minor and was doing much worse health-wise. Recently though, this has increasingly been getting under my skin. I'm the sole provider for my household right now, since my wife was pregnant and only gave birth recently. We would spend a lot to buy her sisters gifts for holidays, which she would never return the favor, even with something cheap with thought or no thought put into them. We'd always take her out to events or dinner and pay for her every time. She would never even pick up the bill for herself and again was not entirely an issue until she became an adult and now I am fed up with it. She expects my sister to do things like pay for her to go to the doctor or invites us out to lunch and then expects us to pay. She does not even schedule her own appointments. My wife takes her wherever she asks, even if she has the ability to do it herself, and we live 45 minutes away. She always talks about how she is freelancing and is making money, but then somehow has no money whenever she needs or wants anything. I did not have an issue with this either, really. I thought my wife was being a pushover, but it's ultimately her money. Until recently, now she is spending my money on her, and it's really getting me angry because I want to spend my money on my daughter, but we are spending it on this financially irresponsible leech. I explained this to my wife in a much nicer way, but we ended up in a fight where I called her sister some pretty messed up things. I ended the conversation by telling her that I would take away her access to our joint bank account until she contributes again if she doesn't tell her sister to grow up and that she is not her mother and she is no longer a child. She can't be dependent on people forever. I think it's an important lesson for her to learn. If she doesn't learn it, she can get back to work and continue supporting her until she is 40 with her own money, not mine. She honestly thinks this is an end-of-the-world situation. I think it's quite clear that this is for the better. I think she is scared of hurting her sister, but at this point she is crippling her by allowing her to do nothing. Edit, I should have worded it better in my post. I just meant having the debit card and using our money on her sister. Not taking away all her access to money, but setting a limit or giving her cash so she cannot just get suckered into paying for stuff. A lot of the criticism still stands despite this, but I want to clarify that I'm not taking away her access to all the money entirely, and I also understand the comments about my wife being a homemaker, meaning that she's putting in equal work, so my money is her money. But we are on a single income and we can barely afford our family needs. I cannot give her half my salary, so she can spend half of that on her sister. A majority of it goes to keeping us paycheck to paycheck right now. And yeah, Ripe Stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this one. Do you think OP is being the a-hole here or not? The first comment said, "You are the a-hole. I get why you are upset about your wife spending money on her sister, but you are using the fact that your wife currently does not have her own income because she just gave birth to your kid in order to control her, which is an a-hole move on a whole different level." Comment number 2, everyone sucks here. You're the a-hole on pulling the "my money since I'm the breadwinner" and being controlling to the point of financial abuse in cutting off joint account access. Her for continuing though to enable her sister. If she can work, why on earth are you two footing the bill for all her own medical appointments and then social events with you too? A few things. Each spouse should get some money that's theirs for discretionary spending without judgment from the other. If she wants to fund her sister out of that share, so be it. Your wife needs to grow a backbone. If the sister is inviting you out, she needs to pay for her own share at a minimum. It is super tacky to expect others to fund a social life that you cannot afford yourself. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. Me and my neighbor have never gotten along, but over the years things have gotten extremely out of hand. Things came to a boil one day and I want to share that story with everybody. So this takes place in Ukraine, so I need to point out that this happened a few years ago before the war started. Honestly, I wish that things were back to being so simple that fighting with my neighbor was the biggest issue. Putting that aside anyway, let me get into the story itself. Like I said, we have never gotten along and I knew the reason for this was because of our property sizes. I had a much larger property than him and he had the kind of ego where he felt he couldn't have the smaller area to live in. He tried several ways in order to attempt to steal my property, but none of them worked. They were not very interesting stories, so I'll just quickly gloss over the things that he tried. He tried lying to say the property belonged to him, he tried to convince me to just give him a part of my property, and he even asked to just pretend that my property was his when he had guests over in order to impress them. He was a royal jerk, so I never gave into any of his stupid demands. The biggest issue with this guy was that he was a vegetarian. Don't worry, I don't have some crazy vendetta against people who don't eat meat. He can do whatever he wants, but the issue is that he tries to involve me in it. Now, I eat meat and I don't have any plans or desire to become a vegetarian, which I don't think should be a problem. My neighbor though thinks that because of his dietary choices, I need to bend my personal life. If I was friends with a vegetarian and went out to dinner with them and they asked me not to order meat, I would understand. However, this guy was not my friend and I was not sharing meals with him or anything. This was the conversation we had one day about him wanting me to stop eating meat. Him, I just want you to know that you're going to have to stop eating meat and conform to a vegetarian lifestyle. Me, I don't have to do anything. I pay for my own food and I can eat anything I want to. Him, you need to read the law because you're clearly breaking it. Me, oh, is meat suddenly illegal? Is that why the grocery store had tons of it readily for sale? Him, if you live next to somebody who doesn't eat meat, that means you cannot either. Me, that's not a law, and unless you have something of use to say, I recommend you get away from my house. Him, I'm warning you, it's illegal, and if I see you breaking the law, it will end badly for you. His crappy threat aside, I went on to not change a single thing about my life. Also, despite what I know some of you reading this think I should have done, I'm not one for mean revenge. I was not gonna leave meat at his doorstep or anything like that, I just wanted to move on with my life, and if he bothered me again, I would make a complaint with the police about him. It just so happened that all of this conflict was during some really nice weather where I wanted to do some outdoor cooking. Nothing crazy, just some burgers for my family. One thing I really like about modern grills is that you can hook up the gas tank and then you can use it similar to a stovetop. It takes a lot of danger out of it, but you still have to be careful. Once the grill was heated up, I went to get the burgers and bring them outside. What I didn't know at the time was that my neighbor was watching with a horrible plan in his mind. While I was busy putting the burgers on the grill, he decided to spring into action. He sprinted across my yard and during it threw something onto my grill. I did not know until later that it was a bottle of open lighter fluid. That hitting the grill caused a huge flame and mini explosion. I have no idea if I jumped back or got thrown from the force of the grill. All I knew is I found myself on the ground in shock. My wife ran out of the house screaming and saying that she called the police, but I was just too stunned to do or say anything. After minutes that felt like hours, I was just able to ask what happened, and then the police came. I was very fortunate that I did not get too badly burned. My hand had a minor burn and my eyebrows were basically singed right off of my face. I told them the last thing I remembered was my neighbor running across my yard and throwing something. This caused them to investigate the grill, and they found the bottle of lighter fluid that had been thrown. I did not want to go to the hospital, but my wife pleaded, so I agreed to get my burn looked at and make sure I did not have anything else serious going on. Honestly, I don't blame her because I was really out of it and she thought I might have hit my head or something. The police went over to my neighbor to find out why the hell he did something like that. He could have easily killed me or caused life-altering burns on my body. He told them that I was breaking the law and shoving meat into his face because he was a vegetarian and I hated him. That I was not allowed to barbecue because he could smell the meat and I was trying to make him sick. When they told him he was going to be arrested, though, his story suddenly changed. He did not know that lighter fluid could do that and he was just playing a harmless prank on me. That the two of us were buddies and he would never try to harm me on purpose. It was like he realized in a moment that he royally screwed up and was trying to say anything to worm his way out of it. He sucks at lying though, because he was just arrested anyway and they did not care what he had to say. Besides him getting arrested, I was also personally suing him because my grill was destroyed and I wanted him to pay for a new one. I tried to settle it out of court, but he refused, saying that he would never spend money on a death machine. It was a quick verdict in my favor, especially because he never denied being at fault for my old one getting destroyed. He probably would have gone on another rant, but the judge cut him off and told him to give me the money for a new one. Since he essentially tried to kill me, he ended up behind bars for a long time. I was happy to finally not have to deal with this POS anymore. And yeah, Ripe Stars, it seems like these neighbors are getting more and more unhinged, and if they are unsatisfied with your neighborly relationship, they might even try to kill you. Thank God that my neighbors are pretty nice. And with this, we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please check out my endless playlist, where you can find thousands of hours of content. In addition, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.